able to tell that this is not coming to you from an American accent. I'm not from these shores. I came over to the US in 2007 to join the Obama campaign and created with my two co-founders NationalField, which was the private social network for the Obama campaign, for the thousands of staff and for the hundreds of thousands of volunteers on that campaign. And the first thing to understand about the campaign is that it was run on the axiom of what gets measured gets managed, the business axiom of that. And in a political campaign, there are huge numbers of metrics that you want to keep track of. You've got voter contact. It's a little bit like a sales organization. You're making calls every day. You have a contact rate that you need to figure out. Is your contact rate too high, too low? You have a flake rate. You have confirmations for meetings. You have one-on-ones with elected officials. And all of this big data from the field needed to be gathered. It needed to be aggregated. It needed to be put in front of the decision makers in Chicago. And the McCain campaign understood this as well. Once a week, they'd get on the phone and they'd chat about, how are we doing? What's the numbers look like from this region, from that region? But for the Obama campaign, once a week was too slow. It needed to be real time. It needed to be live because we needed to make decisions about resources in the minute. It was not a long-term organization. It was 18 months to win the presidency. So let me give you a little bit of the backstory of the campaign. Obviously, it started very small. It just started with a few folks in Chicago, and then we went into the early states, as we're seeing now in 2012. And it grew through the country, but without any technological solution for the management of the organization, without any way for us to manage ourselves. And it was growing so fast that it became too big to manage. It became too complex to manage. And there was too much data for us to really get a handle on. And that's why we decided we couldn't go on this way any longer. We needed an efficient management tool. And myself and Aaron and Justin, we were out in the field. The name NationalField actually comes from the NationalField program of the Obama campaign. And we were sitting there and we actually took out a whiteboard and we said, it doesn't work anymore to just have these things attached to spreadsheets, to use the intranet that we're using. It's too clunky, it's too difficult. So why don't we create something different? And we decided that it would have to eliminate all the spreadsheets that we were dealing with, the junk of email that we were getting coming in, had to stream live data, and it had to be social. And that was a key decision back in 2008, that we would create a social tool for the organization modeled on Facebook. And that was NationalField. So to give you a little bit of a look at how it looks, how it works, it would be live, there would be charts, what was going on, spark lines, thanks to Mr. Edward Tufte, who created spark lines. Now they're in Microsoft Excel and everywhere. We were one of the first to use them. Leaderboards. And this is just totally different to other social networks. And that's really because of where we come from, other private social networks. You actually see the metrics of the organization. You see the numbers. This isn't a leaderboard of likes. This isn't a leaderboard of who's commenting on who's friends with who at your company. This is a leaderboard of your actual business metrics, the key performance indicators for your organization. And then when you log in, you see the KPIs for the organization. You see them over time, over the last 30 days. So it's not just about morale boosting, making friends with people at the office, let's plan the company happy hour. It's about the key performance indicators of your organization. So if we go on. The thing that we found after the campaign was unique was that we'd created the first hierarchical social network. So, most social networks is based on friending, following. It's completely flat. You decide what you can see. What we did was we took all this information that companies and organizations already have about their employees. Who's the person at the top? Who's the sort of CMO? Who's the chief marketing officer? Who's the marketing intern? We took that and we created a hierarchical social graph of the organization, which meant that when you logged in, you weren't thinking, oh, is it a faux pas to sort of friend my manager? Is it wrong to, who do I friend? Who do I follow? You were logging in and you were immediately getting your stream automatically. There was no manual interaction for the worker, which is huge. Cut down on a huge amount for a big organization like the Obama campaign. Another thing that we could bring in were, as we said, the real metrics. You could aggregate that big data from the field, and you could see just on the granular level too, for an individual, how are they doing over time? You could coach people, you could see teams, how are they doing over time, and also how are they doing in comparison to each other? So this leaderboard, when I'd go into regions of the campaign, you'd see how excited people would get to be on that leaderboard. It would be kind of 9 p.m. at night, and people would say, okay, we're number 3 and we're going down. Like, we got to keep going up. Just send people back up. And using social for recognition was just so powerful. And this is actually taken from one of the states that came onto NationalField later in the campaign, so we could really see the effect of it. The numbers just skyrocketed. And it's because the transparency led to greater competition amongst folks. And you can get a feel here of what the qualitative side looked like. Again, it's not just, hey, sitting at the company, whatever, coffee maker, and we're chatting about the last episode of Lost. What did you think? Add your comments. It was real business intelligence for the organizations. These are ups and downs based on a Six Sigma idea of pluses and deltas. Something that went well today, something that didn't go so well. And this, using the hierarchical social graph, would be a daily qualitative report, aggregated and filtered all the way up to Chicago, all the way up to the people managing the campaign. People at the top obviously would see thousands of these. So we'd use the hierarchical social graph to organize them in priority. So people close to you say this is important, you'd see that first. And we had people managers at every level, that made that the focus of their day. They'd set their alarm literally in the morning for when they'd get an email of ups and downs from people in the field, from volunteers, from staff in the field, and they'd say, what on earth is going on here? Did you see that ups and down, that up and down from Georgia? They're not on message. We've got to figure that out. We've got to look at it. And it just kept them so in touch with the people who were closest to their customers, the people who were on the ground. You could, as a manager, easily reply. You could star something, and you could see word clouds so that you get a real sense over time of what are the things that are pulling the ups, what are the downs, and really improve decisions. And the qualitative often would feed into the quantitative. Companies nowadays, they're run on quarterly reports, monthly reports. It should be daily. You should be getting these micro reports from the field in order to know how you're doing. Here are some testimonials from folks on the campaign, a game changer. In a hire, able to see in real time what was happening ground, what actually happened today. Here's there was another photo. And this is just a little bit about the ups and downs, just how it affected the organization to have the nightly aggregation of comments and thoughts from staff across the state, every single day, getting a feel for how they were doing. As the campaign ended, we created a command center, a sort of big data command center for the organization, so that we could aggregate all of the metrics up, all of the data up from the field, and know a little bit before you would otherwise exactly how we were doing. And again, it's just like the companies that we work with now, having that predictive ability by looking at the numbers, by taking a sort of big data or Moneyball approach to the numbers, was really, really helpful. And President Obama became president. We decided after the campaign to drive on into enterprise, into other areas. I just want to take a second before I close and maybe have time for questions on why NationalField worked. Well, it was based on the belief that you treat the people at the bottom of your organization with the same respect as the people at the top. And, flat social networks, they'll say that removes silos, that flattens things out, but the reality is you can't have a bottom-up organization if you don't know who's on the top, who's the decision maker, and who's on the ground. Who are the people who are close to your customers, who are the decision makers up above. So that's why we created the hierarchical social graph. And it changed accountability of the organization. Having that transparency of all of the data, all of the numbers, that wasn't just your manager once every quarter sitting down and being, oh, is it Bob, is it? Yeah, no, yeah, somebody was telling me you're doing all right, keep going. You actually saw every single day exactly how people were doing. And, created a culture, really, a culture of self-accountability and the ability for self-learning and self-management. So finally, what was happening on the ground? Well, it was transparency and competition. A lot of people will tell you that social is about communication, it's about helping us, interact more at companies, we're not interacting enough. Well, that's part of it, but really what it's perfect for is recognition. There's such a recognition gap between what people are doing and the recognition that they're getting, how often they're getting it, how accurately they're getting it. And when you make things totally transparent, you can really increase competition, you can unlock an innate sense of competition in people and get terrific results. So in summing up, three firsts for social. That's the first social system designed for management. We're not designed just for people to kind of communicate with each other, to chat for each other. We're designed for the management of large organizations. It's the first structured social network with a hierarchical social graph. It's the first automated social network. We shouldn't be adding each other as friends at work. Companies know enough about their staff in order to automate that process. You just log in, it's plug and play, and you get going. It's the first with metrics, the first that's data-driven around the metrics of your organization. So I don't know if we have time for any questions, but hit me with a question.
It's one thing to use the company's org chart and every structure, but does the system also permit ad hoc connections?
Yeah, exactly. So you sort of, you start with interviewing the organization, figuring out their hierarchy. That's not just, LDAP and the individuals, but also the kind of the group hierarchy and the user hierarchy. But you can also create ad hoc projects, groups that are just, transcending the hierarchy of an organization. Oh, very good point. He was saying, great hierarchy, that's fantastic, but a lot of projects are ad hoc. So how does it work? How does it kind of take on board the ad hoc situation? You can create ad hoc groups.
Building on that question, you mentioned competition, right? How do you create competition? That's a very neat hierarchy structure. I've never actually seen one that looks like that. Just big and loud.
I'll repeat it.
At very different levels, how do you create that competition? Very different dynamics.
Yeah, so it's a really simple phrase, which is percent to goal. So people don't share. Oh, sorry, I forgot to restate the question again. He was saying, great competition. How does that actually work? You've got people with totally different metrics, people working on different things. No hierarchy of an organization is a family tree. They're all much more complex. A lot of the companies we talk to can't even really tell us at first what their hierarchy is. So around competition, what we do is we take all of the different metrics, all of the different goals that people have, and we measure people around their percent to goal. You shouldn't be saying, oh well, here's my key metric over here, which is totally different to yours over there, and we're competing with each other. What you should compete around is the percent to goal and the goals that the organization have set for you.
Are you the architect of the system, and also who actually is going to the Democratic National Committee, or what? How that work?
So myself and two others created NationalField, and we created it for ourselves. We were managers on the campaign, and we thought we've got to fix this. And one of the terrific things about the campaign is that it was genuinely bottom up, in that if you had a good idea for your region of the campaign, it would spread. And so that's what happened. It spread throughout the campaign. It wasn't a committee-focused thing. It was more on the campaign, people saying, hey, set up our state. I'm a manager, I'm struggling, set up our state. And it just spread a little bit like Facebook, state by state, until the whole campaign was using it. Yeah, so that's a part of it. Our focus is on enterprise, but we're working with the campaign currently. He was asking if we were going to use it again. I wouldn't want to get into questions like that. Yeah, so we don't focus entirely on fundraising, but we have folks who do use it for finance, for fundraising, for the numbers. Obviously, it's metric driven, so it's really designed for tracking sales, tracking revenues, tracking numbers.
What technology are you using?
So it's based on it's PHP. It's delivered through the cloud, so it's what technology it's based on. It's written in PHP, it's delivered through the cloud. It's really easy for you to go to nationalfield.com, get started, get a feel for it. Obviously, the hierarchical social graph means that it's more powerful the larger you are. But we have organizations as low as sort of 10 to 50 people who use it, just because being in the same office doesn't mean that you're talking to each other properly, doesn't mean that you're managing properly. But thank you all so much. Very good.